Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, proud to support the mission of KPBS and privileged to serve San Diego clients. Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, helping homeowners maintain drain, heating, and cooling systems since 1978. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.
Good evening. It's Thursday, December 3rd. Thanks for joining us. I'm Amitha Sharma in for Maya Trabulsi. Governor Newsom issues a limited stay-at-home order. Details in a moment, but first, high winds, wildfires, trees downed, power outages. We're in the midst of a red flag event that has seen homes burned, schools closed, and debris all across the county. KPBS reporter Matt Hoffman is live in Rancho San Diego with a look at the damage and how long these power outages could last. Matt?
Amitha, behind me here, you can see the damage firsthand that a fast-moving, wind-driven fire can do. Lots of destruction out here. We are in Rancho San Diego. I want to show you this home out here. You can see some lights as we're losing some daylight. This was the only total loss in the Willow fire home-wise. You can see crews are out here working to repair the damage. Lots of neighbors have been driving by, walking around, just shocked by the destruction. Some even getting emotional out here. A few other homes were also damaged last night, but this all could have been a lot worse.
Any type of wind-driven fire that's burning upslope with these type of wind conditions, it's not uncommon to lose several homes.
Overnight, fire crews were able to get a handle on the Willow fire in Rancho San Diego, stopping flames after about 30 acres were burned. One home was lost and many more were evacuated.
I could see the red sky and the smoke, and of course there was fire trucks and sheriff's cars all over the place.
Fire crews say strong Santa Ana winds made the fire tough to contain, but they were able to overwhelm the flames with resources. CAL FIRE crews are on full staffing this week.
We were able to utilize San Diego City Copter 2 and 3 to help us with the water drops. The wind was right at that threshold where they were able to make it work.
We talked to CAL FIRE this afternoon while crews were at the scene of a small brush fire in San Marcos. While strong winds are a major concern, so is low humidity.
When the air is really dry, we have those low relative humidities, and it's been extremely low. We could, everybody could feel it on their skin. It's the relative humidity's been in the single digits and teens throughout the county. That's incredibly dry. Then you have that air mass pushing through. It really drives these fires.
That's what the fire feels. It doesn't just feel temperatures, it really feels moisture.
Our county is under a red flag warning right now, with some areas seeing wind gusts of 50, 60, even over 80 miles per hour. That's caused SDG&E to implement power safety shutoffs, impacting more than 50,000 San Diegans. Winds are expected to die down starting tonight, and the red flag warning is set to expire tomorrow, but SDG&E is estimating some could have their power off through Sunday.
The problem is, though, we're going to stay very dry, so tomorrow we'll warm up a little bit, and the humidity will still be 7-8%, maybe even as low as 5% in some of the mountains. So you still got very dry conditions, so any ongoing fire will really like that, even if it's a small fire.
Looking ahead, forecasters are predicting moderate Santa Ana winds next week on Monday and Tuesday, which could bring another round of red flag warnings and more power shutoffs.
Yeah, and residents are definitely not happy about those power safety shutoffs that seem to be coming up now on a regular basis. Now, fire officials, they want people to keep in mind in these areas where the fire might be out, that are in fire-prone areas, that if you have to keep double check your evacuation plan, because something like if your car's in a garage, it has an electric opener, how are you going to get that vehicle out of the garage? Just make sure you double check your evacuation plans. Here in Rancho San Diego, you can see them still trying to repair the damage from the fire home last night. Matt Hoffman, KPBS News.
Thank you, Matt, for that report. We saw hurricane-force winds in several spots. Gusts topped out at 95 miles per hour on Big Black Mountain, 93 miles per hour at Sill Hill, and 84 miles per hour in Hellhole Canyon. It looks like the worst may be over. We'll have more in your complete forecast in a few minutes. Now to the latest on the coronavirus pandemic. Within a day or two, most of California will likely be under a stay-at-home order. Today, Governor Gavin Newsom announced new rules that will lead to another round of business closures. It comes as San Diego County reports 1,504 new cases and 5 deaths. KPBS health reporter Taryn Mento explains what will trigger the new order.
The restrictions aren't in place just yet, but Governor Gavin Newsom says it's right around the corner for the Southern California region, and that includes San Diego.
As early as the next day or two, as early or rather as late as the next week or so.
That's when he expects less than 15% of the region's ICU beds to be available. Data compiled by media partner KQED shows the region is at 23.7% availability as of yesterday. But a county spokeswoman said the state projects Southern California could dip below 15% by tomorrow. That would close a wide range of businesses for at least 3 weeks.
When the region is placed in the stay-at-home category, that bars, wineries, personal services, hair salons, and the like will be temporarily closed for that 3-week period.
Restaurants would also be restricted to takeout and delivery, and retail locations limited to 20% capacity. But schools already doing in-person learning could remain open, and essential services would continue. Newsom says most outdoor recreation sites would also stay accessible.
We want you to exercise and go on a run with a partner within your household. Go sledding, these outdoor activities in the winter, to the extent a walk on the beach or out in our state parks or your local parks is appropriate. We encourage that. Take a bike ride, go fishing.
However, playgrounds would be closed. The state's Dr. Mark Galley says after 3 weeks under the orders, the state will lift restrictions based on current transmission rates and ICU projections for the next month.
We know that by seeing that transmission rate come down 3 weeks after putting the order in place, that we should see projections of our ICU capacity increase above 15%, which allows us to lift that regional stay-at-home order effectively.
If lifted, counties will then go back to the tier based on their own county's case and positivity rates. Newsom says the measures will help protect hospitals for the expected surge in admissions, and he pointed to resources on the state's website for businesses and workers that will be weathering the closures. Taryn Mento, KPBS News.
The county says the closure order could come as early as Sunday, but it is not certain. San Diego's outgoing mayor, Kevin Faulconer, reacted to the governor's announcement on Twitter. He claimed there is no science to support curfew orders, a ban on eating outside, or shutting down playgrounds, adding, quote, "No wonder Californians are angry." The bleak winter forecast for COVID-19 is becoming reality. The U.S. on Wednesday reported its highest daily death toll from the coronavirus, and experts say it is only going to get worse. Karen Kafa has the latest from Washington.
A grim picture now, a dark outlook ahead.
This is a very, very difficult and dangerous time, and if we don't change our ways, this will not be the top of the curve.
More than 2,800 Americans lost their lives to COVID-19 on Wednesday, the highest daily death toll of the pandemic. The American Ambulance Association says the 911 emergency call system is at a breaking point. The number of new daily cases and hospitalizations is also soaring.
Doctors, nurses, respiratory techs, they are tired. They are stressed. They are pushed to the limit.
The Biden-Harris administration will take control of the U.S. response to the pandemic in 7 weeks. And the nation's top infectious diseases expert, Dr. Anthony Fauci, met with the transition team virtually on Thursday. This as states prepare to receive their first vaccine doses, pending the federal government's sign-off, which could come next week.
Healthcare workers, residents of long-term care facilities and nursing homes, essential workers, and people over 65 is who's in that first group. That's a huge group of Americans.
In addition to improving the public health situation, there's hope vaccines can aid the ailing economy, too. Another 712,000 Americans filed for first-time unemployment benefits last week, according to the Labor Department. In Washington, Karen Kafa, KPBS News.
After Californians waited months for their unemployment benefits to be approved, there's a new push for direct deposit option. Local Assemblywoman Lorena Gonzalez plans to introduce the legislation Monday. She says the current system has been hampered by fraudulent transactions, card freezes, and withdrawal limits with debit cards. California is one of 3 states that does not allow the option for direct deposit of unemployment benefits. San Diego County public health officials say there have been COVID-19 outbreaks at 3 Awaken Church locations in the county. KPBS reporter Jacob Ayers says the organization continues to defy cease and desist orders by holding indoor services.
Since Saturday, San Diego County has issued health advisories about 3 Awaken Church locations in Kearny Mesa, San Marcos, and Chula Vista. While the church has not responded to KPBS requests for comments, on December 2nd, its executive of ministries posted a message on Instagram. In the video, Matt Hubbard spoke out against the cease and desist orders from the county.
There's going to be political ramifications, and you're picking a fight. You're picking a fight, and that's called bullies, and we're not going to be bullied.
As of Thursday, the 3 church outbreaks constitute 65 COVID-19 cases. The county asked those who attended in-person services from November 15th through 22nd to get tested or quarantined for 14 days, depending on which location they attended. In an email to KPBS, the San Diego County Sheriff Department said, if a business continues to operate in violation of the cease and desist order, the following could occur. A deputy sheriff or police officer may issue a citation for Government Code 8665. This is a written notice to appear in court for the violation. They later said another outcome could be a deputy sheriff or police officer may submit a case to the district attorney for review. The district attorney will review the facts of the case or violation and determine if the case should be issued and prosecuted or handled under civil or other provisions of the law. Reverend Shane Harris held a press conference today to call on Awaken Church pastor Jurgen Mathesius to cease indoor church services.
And so I first want to say to you, Pastor Mathesius, what you are doing is immoral. You're putting your people at risk.
Today, some houses of worship in California won at least a momentary victory in the U.S. Supreme Court. The justices directed a lower court to reconsider Harvest Rock Church's challenge to Governor Gavin Newsom's ban on indoor services. Jacob Ayers, KPBS News.
We're following all the latest developments on our website, kpbs.org. Click on the Tracking COVID-19 button on our homepage, and you'll find resources like our trigger tracker and coronavirus cases by zip code. You'll also find all our recent stories. The father of a San Diego State University freshman who died after drinking at a fraternity is suing for wrongful death. The lawsuit names several defendants, including SDSU, the CSU system, the fraternity his son was joining, and the company that made his son's dorm bed. After a night of drinking at Phi Gamma Delta in November of last year, Dylan Hernandez fell out of his bunk bed and hit his head. The 19-year-old from Florida died. The lawsuit claims negligence and misconduct led to Hernandez's death. Census officials have discovered data issues which could delay the completion of the 2020 census. That's according to internal documents shared by House Democrats. The issues are said to include, quote, high complexity problems that could lead to a miscount. This could push back a key tally until February, after Joe Biden is sworn in as president. That delay would block the Trump administration's effort to exclude undocumented immigrants when dividing seats in the House of Representatives. Crews are battling a wildfire east of Irvine. This one, though, was started by a house fire first. It broke out overnight, forcing thousands to flee their homes. Gusty Santa Ana's making for a tough fight. 2 firefighters have been hurt. So far, just over 7,000 acres have burned with 0 containment. And the fire danger continues here at home. Melissa Costanzer has your forecast.
We've been talking a lot about the fire threat, and here's the good news. We're going to get a break, at least through some of our mountainous areas, with those winds decreasing tomorrow. However, we still have the critical fire weather conditions until then, and Guess what? Even beyond that, we're staying dry, so not a whole lot of big changes coming for us. But check out the winds. They were gusty as we've gone through the past 36 hours, 95-mile-per-hour wind gusts at Big Black Mountain. Now, keep in mind, this is a lot of our mountainous areas. Once you were in the city, you didn't really have a wind, so you might be wondering what wind. Well, it certainly was out there and continues to stay out there across the region as we head in through tomorrow. But as I mentioned, those winds will start to decrease tomorrow, but until then, we do have high wind warnings and even some wind advisories in place across our area. On top of it all, then there are the red flag conditions. Most of these last through tomorrow, the red flag conditions, and it's not just our area, it's also north into the greater Los Angeles area. So keep in mind that if you are traveling. Temperatures in the 30s and 40s tonight. You can see here Mount Laguna coming in at 23 for that low, and we keep things quiet as the winds back off slowly through tomorrow, and that's because this high is starting to weaken. So we're starting to see some changes as we venture towards the weekend. Tomorrow's forecast in the 70s, 73 for San Diego as we look across the area against dry sunshine and getting quieter as far as those winds are concerned. The coast, no problems here. Temperatures staying in the 60s or even 70s. Again, keeping things quiet. Maybe a few extra clouds with that low coming in on Monday, but there's not going to be much in the way of moisture. That's going to be true as well for the inland locations as temperatures hang out in the 70s. We venture into the mountains, winds starting to die down here tomorrow, and then as we get in through the weekend, things stay pretty quiet for us. It will still, though, be a little bit breezy, I think, in some locations, and for the desert, hanging out in the 70s. For KPBS News, I'm meteorologist Melissa Constanzer.
San Diego researchers say a massive African dust storm that crossed the Atlantic last summer may be linked to melting Arctic sea ice. KPBS environmental reporter Eric Anderson has details.
The huge storm put a hazy blanket over much of the American South and West this past summer, but the storm's roots may lie in the Arctic North. Scripps Institution of Oceanography scientist Amado Evan was part of a team that found melting sea ice is raising temperatures, and that's disrupting global weather patterns. He says one impact was the weather system that created the massive dust storm.
What we're doing is an uncontrolled experiment on planet Earth, and so we really don't know what all of those impacts are going to be, whether they're positive or negative. But the fact that it's an uncontrolled experiment seems pretty risky.
Evan says it's likely that more of these storms could happen as the climate continues to warm. He calls the storm another example of climate-fueled extreme weather. Eric Anderson, KPBS News.
Balboa Park is much more than just a beautiful park. It is home to most of San Diego's museums. They all closed once the pandemic hit in March. Some have remained closed since then. Others have reopened only to close again once San Diego moved into the purple tier. In the first installment of a two-part series, KPBS reporter John Carroll looks at how some of the city's most cherished institutions are surviving in the era of COVID-19.
Balboa Park. Spending time here reminds you of why people call this 1,200-acre expanse the jewel of San Diego. This lush setting is home to some of San Diego's cultural gems, repositories of everything from priceless works of art to some of the wonders of the industrial age and the miracles of science. For the institutions that house all of it, the months since March have presented challenges none of them have ever had to face before.
The closures have been a very difficult thing to overcome.
Michael Warburton works for the Balboa Park Cultural Partnership, an umbrella group representing most of the park's museums.
Some of the museums, this is their third time being closed. Some of the performing arts venues haven't had performances for the public since March.
Some of the institutions are financially healthy enough to make it through to the other side of this pandemic easier than others. But for most of them, the loss of their main source of revenue, ticket sales, has meant painful decisions.
Many of the organizations have had to go through furloughs and layoffs, really cutting back on things that they can perform or programming. It has been a challenge, needless to say, for the organizations in the park. And different challenges for different organizations in different ways.
It's definitely been an interesting and unique experience. I never thought I would
have to go through.
Katie Titus began her job as the San Diego Model Railroad Museum's Marketing and Community Engagement Coordinator in June, months after the museum had closed the first time around. The fact that the museum actually hired someone well into the pandemic was a good sign of the place's financial health, but
the train's not stopping anytime soon, but we're running low on coal.
The Model Railroad Museum is fortunate in one unique way. A lot of the people that work here are volunteers, folks that live and breathe model railroads. But Titus says the financial hit from being closed for most of 2020 has been considerable. Pre-pandemic, about 2/3 of the museum's revenue came from ticket sales. Titus says having that financial stream suddenly go completely dry meant museum management had to get very creative very quickly.
Our membership and development manager and our executive director have worked incredibly hard to find grants and other funding opportunities, but we're still in need of donations to help close the gap from 8 months of closure.
Of course, it's human nature to look for silver linings in dark times, and there are some to be found in the park. Some of the institutions in the park are taking advantage of this COVID downtime to do the kind of work that's really tough when there are a lot of visitors around. For example, the Timken Museum of Art, where they're doing some renovation work inside. Back here inside the Model Railroad Museum, the museum's railroad modelers are taking this downtime to make some really serious progress on a huge project. This has been years in the making. It's the Tehachapi Pass Railroad, and as you can see over here, things are still early on in the process. They're still building some of the scenery and doing some of the painting, but over here, they're much further along. You can see they have some of the scenery already done, and eventually, when it's all finished, it'll look pretty much like that. But for now, being closed means doing things differently. Like most of Balboa Park's museums, the Model Railroad Museum has had to execute a quick pivot into the virtual world.
We have 2 virtual exhibits. We have our online lecture series. We have member-exclusive events via Zoom. We had our first ever virtual summer camp, where we had campers from Pennsylvania, Florida, California, everything in between, learning how to build a model railroad. And we've even gone international, delivering distance learning programs to Canada.
With news of vaccines on the horizon, plans are being made at all of Balboa Park's museums and other attractions to reopen. But for now, just this place, the stunning beauty of Balboa Park, makes it a great place to spend some time.
If there's any place centrally located in San Diego where you can safely distance and enjoy gardens and a nice day out, this is the place.
Even with its beloved institutions closed, this is still the jewel of San Diego. John Carroll, KPBS News.
Tomorrow, John shows us how one of the park's major museums is weathering the pandemic, and he'll preview some exciting new things coming to Balboa Park in the near future. The San Diego Zoo and Safari Park are taking extra steps to keep visitors safe as coronavirus infections rise ahead of the holiday season. Both will require guests to make reservations whether they buy a ticket or have a membership. The Zoo and Safari Park have been operating at reduced capacity since June, but with an uptick in visitors expected over the holidays, park officials are hoping to avoid long lines for health screenings. The new reservation system is expected to be up and running by Saturday. The pandemic has taken a toll on many things in our lives, and the American Red Cross says it's also impacted blood supplies. As the holidays approach, the organization says there's a critical need. Mandy Gaither has more on how you can help.
We are very concerned.
The holidays are always hard on blood donations, but now even more.
Yes, people need to take care of themselves, be safe, be socially distant from one another, but giving blood is an essential activity, and we need people to respond now.
Paul Sullivan with the American Red Cross says blood supplies are low, with more than 100,000 blood drives canceled since the pandemic started. While some have been replaced, it's been challenging.
Where we would normally collect blood in terms of schools, places of worship, community centers, some of those locations are not currently operating or obviously not bringing together the same numbers of people.
Coronavirus convalescent plasma is also now being collected by the Red Cross. That's the antibodies from someone recovering from COVID-19 that can be used to help someone else who's battling it.
The blood program has only become more important at a time where it's more challenging to get people to come out.
For Health Minute, I'm Mandy Gaither.
The Red Cross says they're taking every precaution to keep blood drives safe, including temperature checks, health questionnaires, and even more cleaning. They're also urging people to make appointments. You can find out more at www.redcrossblood.org. What is it? How did it get there? That's what people are asking about a metal obelisk that mysteriously appeared in a California park. The metal monolith is on a hiking trail at Stadium Park in Atascadero near Santa Barbara. It's similar to other obelisks that have been spotted around the world recently, including one in such a remote part of Utah. It was discovered by a helicopter. Naturally, this phenomenon has garnered the attention of the internet. Who's responsible for the objects and whether they are connected remains a mystery.
I'm Judy Woodruff. Tonight on the NewsHour, a grim reality. COVID kills more in the U.S. in a single day than ever before. Coming up at 7 after Evening Edition on KPBS.
Here's a recap of our top stories. Most of California, including San Diego, will likely be under a stay-at-home order within a day or two. Today, Governor Gavin Newsom announced the order would be triggered when ICU bed availability falls below 15%. The new rules require hair salons and barbershops to close, limit retail stores to 20% capacity, and only allow restaurants to offer takeout and delivery. The restrictions will last for 3 weeks. And extreme fire danger continues throughout the county as Santa Ana winds and low humidity heighten the risk of wildfires. SDG&E shut off power for tens of thousands of inland homes and businesses as a precaution. A brush fire broke out in the Rancho San Diego area late last night, burning around 30 acres. One home was destroyed. You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. Thank you for joining us and have a great evening.
Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, proud to support the mission of KPBS and privileged to serve San Diego clients. Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, helping homeowners maintain drain, heating, and cooling systems since 1978. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley. And by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.